Hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for January 3rd, the day of total involvement. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of total involvement. We have us a bit of an involved image, if you like. Boom, what is it? Well, it's a upturned crescent moon with a couple of goose heads, some entwined goose heads, and I would argue maybe they're clutching the brass ring. That's right. Day of total involvement. Hey, there's a lot going on in that image, to be sure. Now, does that necessarily speak to the day? Who's to say? But maybe we'll make some connotations as we get on with the read specifically. That being said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image there. What is important is it's January 3rd, hence it's somebody's birthday. So me wishing you happy birthday. That's right. That's what's important. Wishing you happy birthday. Now, if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may be, well, I just want to say, I hope you had a happy birthday in that case. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, we're here ideally to celebrate January 3rd birthday. I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I get into the read direct, something I like to do around these here parts, and that's a roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast. I almost forgot the copy, so I like to roll some dice to live up to the namesake. But I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And you know what, folks? I don't know. I rolled a 6 and a 6 again. Doubles, straight to jail. You know what? We got to go with it. That's what I rolled. I didn't mean to, but hey, that's what the universe decided, right? So what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, folks, as I mentioned the universe earlier, a lot of times we get into our day, get out in the world, and we're very singular or laser focused. And we have the blinders on, if you like, not necessarily notice the things that are going on around us, at least not to the finer kind of detail that I'm going to start diving into here. That said, I've heard it been told that the universe or the powers that be will put things in our path to help us realize our goals or aspirations. However, if you got those blinders on, you might not be noticing such things. And so this is an exercise to help you take those blinders off. Start maybe recognizing the signs that the universe is giving to you. And why not a sign that we can't help but not mistake? That's right. Your daily numbers. This is a conversation with the universe, an exercise in identifying the signs. So you don't have to go with the numbers that I rolled for you. You're probably a little suspicious in that case, but hey, that's what I rolled there. That being said, it's probably ideal you take your own set of dice. Ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. That being said, once you've established those things, figured out a place to start a walk from or see where things start to line up, you take off, all right? But like I said, get those blinders off. You want to start soaking up everything around you like a sponge. You never know. The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. You might start seeing synchronicities or coincidences, as some people like to say, all around you. And they might take the form of, I don't know, let's go with the visual representational image here. That's within easy reach. You got the geese with the brass ring and the upturned crescent moon. All sorts of things in that regard. But hey, you take off from, say, the city square, you get yourself a northeasterly direction for a 12-minute period there, let's say. It wouldn't go with 66 minutes. That's a long time to walk in one direction. But hey, you just keep going, right? And you see what you see. Maybe there's nothing of note. It's just the typical cities goings-ons kind of thing with maybe not so many pluralized words in there. But that said, maybe at the end of your time value there, and you don't really see anything. Well, just stop, compose yourself, look around, take in the environment where it wanted you to get to. Maybe you look up at the street sign and hey, maybe you're on 12th Avenue, all right? Hey, I would say that's a sign to let you know you're on the right track, all right? It's exactly where it wants you to be there, the universe, the high powers that be. So roll yourself another time value, another direction, and set off. Who's to say? Maybe a goose just happens to cross your path, all right? Look for things like that. That seems a little obvious, but hey, maybe you see a goose sticker up on a street sign or a mural of as much or an upturned crescent moon, something that would have escaped you if you weren't being eagle-eyed. Having said that, maybe you set off again, come to the next time limit, end of as much, and you're on a street corner. And hey, maybe the number 12 bus pulls up. You know what? Perfect opportunity to roll with your signs there. I know you probably don't like to get on the bus, but hey, you know what? Maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket. Or let's say you don't, so now you can't ride the bus. So hey, if you don't like riding the bus, perfect, all right? Maybe the universe knew as much, and maybe it was just to get you off center there a little bit. Get your time kind of equated with some things that's got lined up for you here in the future. Maybe you roll yourself a time value in another direction. You get going. Here you find yourself in front of a building with a 66 in the address. All right. Hey, you know what? Maybe it's a shopping mall of all things. You know what? I know it seems a little bit ridiculous. That's a big building to maybe go into. But hey, go on in there. Maybe the first thing you notice, the nearest entrance, it opens up and it's a carousel. Oh, you know what they got at carousels, right? The brass ring. That's right. Maybe just take that perfect change you didn't have for the bus there. Maybe it's perfect change to ride the carousel. And maybe you get a chance to reach for that brass ring that you could never grab as a kid because your arms weren't long enough. Your wingspan wasn't quite right, if we stick with the goose theme there. But hey, maybe you grab that brass ring, get you a prize, and maybe it's a stuffed goose. Who's to say? But I'm saying here, it could take on a theme. You could start to see things line up. That being said, I think you get the idea with synchronicity. So get on out there, see, taste, touch, reach for a little bit of that magic. And if you claim any of it, you'll know exactly why I brought it up. All right, let's dive in with the birthday read. All right, your month is January. Your day is the 3rd. Your sign is 11 to 14 degrees, Capricorn, of the Capricorn II period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal Earth. All right, January 3rd, the day of total involvement. Once a January 3 person commits to a person or project, they are in 100%. Their involvement with practically any activity that they take on is total, and rarely or ever will they seek to back down or quit. And this can create problems for them and for those whom they are involved, it says in parentheticals, when things aren't working out. And those born on this day often cannot or will not acknowledge such a failure. And when things are going well, they are the most reliable individuals to have on the job. Watchful, diligent, and devoted. And they do not get bored with even the simplest tasks, primarily because they have a strong sense of duty. And those born on this day will not shirk their responsibilities because they know that to do so is just to dump their work on someone else. And this will not do. January 3rd people are both persuasive and stubborn. Consequently, those who wish to back out of an arrangement with them may find it difficult or near impossible to just walk away. And January 3 people are capable of bringing enormous pressure to bear on those to get them to do their bidding. And they must use secretive means to subtly tighten the screws, or perhaps humor, or even outright seduction, since they know what people like. Yet in business matters, they will rarely be accused of taking advantage of other people for their own private ends, since their sense of fealty to their organization or cause is beyond reproach. January 3 people do not mind being in the line of fire. They can turn aggressive when challenged, but otherwise avoid confrontations and in general appear polite and well-mannered. Their sophistication is of the charming variety, as it is composed not merely of knowledge and refinement, but also has a measure of street sense in it as well. Racketeers, aficionados of the good things in life, those born on this day display a strong earthy quality. Generally, they give the choice to the other person whether things get done pleasantly or unpleasantly, but get done they will! Exclamation point. And because of their persuasive powers and strong willfulness, January 3 people can be overbearing and impossible in certain situations. The frustration of those involved with them can bounce off the scale, and simmering angers can boil over on both sides. But in fact, it is more often the temper of the other party which is lost. And January 3 people are highly controlled, which in part, or is part rather, of the reason they win out in most confrontations. A familiar ploy is for them to appear to give up, while all the while marshaling their forces to return to battle on a better day. In reality, they never give up on a matter which deeply concerns them. And January 3 people must beware of surrendering too much of their individuality to group endeavors. They should seek a profession in which they are able to put their personal stamp on whatever they do and balance individual freedom with duty in an appropriate ratio. Spiritual goals should not be left out of the question or sacrificed in the name of getting the job done. All right, a rather narrowly focused birthday breakdown, I would say, but within that narrow focus, it really expanded out the scope. It's been kind of a through line here with the Capricorn. Typically, that's only really reserved for one particular day, but they've been doing it for the past couple weeks here. So not necessarily well-rounded in terms of like going over your family or perhaps your childhood or how you act as parents, those sorts of things. That's what I like to call kind of expansive or well-rounded. But that being said, I still think they provided a lot of value. All right, so I like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read. So let's dive into it, shall we? January 3, the day of total involvement. All right. You're committed to people and projects 100%, and you're said to be completely involved in any activity you take on to the extent you're not likely to quit. All right, which presents problems when it comes to losing prospects, be it in career or personal endeavors, I would assume. As you aren't someone who's apt to acknowledge or perhaps even admit failure, like the breakdown said. You're watchful, diligent, and devoted, and those are words that the reading uses to describe your reliability, which is said to be an extension or perhaps owes to your sense of duty, which must be of a particular trademark that sets you apart from others if it's being mentioned, because that's not the kind of thing they bring up very often. And as I would argue, such attributes, while they do seem kind of lacking writ large with a lot of people, I don't necessarily think that's the case. We just kind of, how do you say it? Plenty of people are committed. It just sadly doesn't get as much recognition as, say, people who quit or who are lazy and don't do the job, right? Unfortunately. But if they're mentioning it for you, it must be top tier. That's why I bring it up. Having said that, you're persuasive, stubborn, and you don't shirk your responsibilities, and the reading claims that you have the ability to bring pressure upon those who may wish to do just that, not do what they're responsible for. Will you do that whether through subversion, artifice, and even seduction, the reading said, and you're purported to get people to do your bidding for a fascinating, albeit a little disconcerting turn, I would say. As the commitment to cause that was conveyed at the beginning of the read, it's a very salt of the earth kind of quality in my mind, at least as I was reading it. But conniving to get that done, it isn't quite as wholesome, I would argue, all right? But this is the day of total involvement, is it not? All right. And you're said to commit to things 100%, get the job done. So yeah, if conniving's what it's going to take sometimes to that end, I suppose it makes sense. It's also not the day of total enduring involvement to that end. So nevertheless, you don't mind being in the line of fire, and you can take an aggressive turn when confronted. But avoid conflict if you can help it. It kind of sounds like, or I'm just saying that in earnest there, because it's never going to turn out real good in most cases. You're charming, sophisticated, and as I initially sensed, of an earthy quality that allows you to maintain your composure if tensions turn hot as you effort to rouse others to your objectives in light of all of this. All right. And I'm assuming that's part of the reason rather, that the reading suggests gravitating toward professions where you work as an individual. Perhaps, which I would kind of agree with, considering all the things I've read about this period so far. But it might just be much more in line with your qualities and stuff. And hey, you don't have to rely on other people to get the job done right. That's right. But there's some negatives to that as well. Like maybe you're not going to get things done as quickly as you would like because now you don't have as many hands in the mix. But that being said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. Very interesting day indeed. So let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 3rd of the month are ruled by the number 3 and by the planet Jupiter. And those ruled by the number 3 tend to rise to the highest positions in their sphere and can be dictatorial when they get there. And since Saturn rules Capricorn, January 3 people know how to put limitations on themselves and rarely fall victim to unrealistic Jupiterian optimism. The mutual influence of Jupiter and Saturn lends ambition but also honor and trustworthiness to their efforts. And those ruled by the number 3 value their independence and can do very well for themselves in business. But unfortunately, many January 3 people get stuck in company jobs due to their dedication and abundance of loyalty. All right. Very highly personalized numbers and planets here today, which isn't necessarily all too common. Sometimes it's just little hints of as much, but I think they did quite a bit of personalization here for you. Now, I might be getting ahead of myself. Let's dive in to the notes here. The number 3 in the expansive planet Jupiter. All right, for a penchant to rise to the highest positions in your sphere and maybe be dictatorial when you get there, all right, which is a rare inclusion as it turns out. And this is what I find very interesting about this particular entry. Usually when Jupiter and Saturn form a co-rulership, there's conflict and frustration just rife throughout the whole period there. It's kind of like one of the well-defined hallmarks, at least insofar as the last period. You're ruled by Saturn primarily on the zodiac level, Jupiter on the day level. The last periods, it was flipped to that extent, and everybody had conflict and frustration, writ large, it seemed. But here, that's completely opposite. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, why would that be? It might just be that the things are swapped and there's a different dynamic there. I can't be sure. It's just a seeming anomaly. And Jupiter and Saturn had a really big conflict, it seems. So here they don't make any mention of that, which just seemed weird to me. But interesting to that extent. Yeah, like I said, the Sagittarius, Capricorn cusp period, all those days are just rife with frustration. But lately, as it's popped up, it's been a little different. Perhaps, like I said, on account of Saturn being the zodiac ruler, Jupiter, the day of the rulership of the day there. Regardless, the conflicts that seem to arise for you, apparently, they relate more to this purported conservative nature that kind of is brought on by the constrictive planet Saturn. And with the world around you, not necessarily a personal type thing, the way I read it. Your dedication might serve as the greater good, but over time it may be at the cost of the personal good, it sounded like. To say your own prospects and aspirations, you kind of throw them in the trunk there of the car and you drive to work, because that's where your loyalty lies. So a very personalized, uncharacteristic day here, but I would say, you know what? Don't discount your own aspirations, all right? Leave them up there, at least in the back seat, not in the trunk, all right? And then one day you can move them up to the passenger side. That's right. In any event, that's been your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right. It's one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies by a lot of people's mind. But hey, it's here in the book. It's your birthday. Sometimes we can make some decent connections with things that have been brought up in the birthday. So let's just dive in, see what it has to say. We don't have to take it home with us and start dealing out the cards to inspire our every whim or flight of fancy. So let's get into it. The third card of the major arcana is the Empress, symbolizing creative intelligence. She is the perfect woman, the ultra-feminine Mother Earth nurturer, who embodies our dreams, hopes, and aspirations. The card represents positive traits of charm, grace, and unconditional love, but also negative traits of vanity and affectation, as well as an intolerance for imperfection. Her steadfast qualities are often exemplified in January 3 people, who, as mentioned above, make faithful friends and loyal family members. All right. I don't remember picking up on that last aspect there, outside your loyalty, but I don't remember them carrying it over to friends and family. I must have just breezed over that in my mind as I was reading it and doing the notes. But in any event, hey, let's dive in to what I had to say about your tarot here. The Empress for representing creative intelligence and perhaps inventiveness in your conniving. That's right. Because I didn't really pick up on much creative aspirations in there. Not to say they don't exist. Maybe they just didn't have time to go over it. But they also have negatives of vanity, affectation, and intolerance for imperfection. I don't exactly see where the steadfast qualities are mentioned belonging to the Empress, interestingly, but I agree that you have those qualities based on the breakdown. I did get an idea of an intolerance for imperfection, though I don't think they directly mentioned it. It seems to be kind of a through line there with the conservative nature and dedication to cause, and so I would kind of ascribe that to that kind of thing. Why that's a negative specifically, I do not know. I could see that as both, I suppose. As for the positives, I could see this applying to your getting folks to do what you want, all right? Albeit that could be seen as a negative in a lot of respects. All right. That being said, that's what I'd say about your tarot. The drilling down on the conniving thing, I don't know. It's just what stood out to me amongst most of the stuff that was in there. It was such a surprising turn, so I thought I would drill back down on it there. That being said, your tarot having been gone over, let's dive in with your health. All right, your health. Those born on January 3 are sensible enough to schedule regular dental and medical checkups for themselves. All right, yet too often they are ready to sacrifice their health and well-being for their work. All right, consequently, it is important that from an early age, habits promoting a nourishing diet, personal hygiene, and regular sleep become ingrained. Strenuous physical exercise, not excluding competitive team or one-on-one sports, is highly recommended for those born on this day. And January 3 people should be aware of skin disorders and allergies of all types. All right. Pretty interesting health relation here. Not too pretty well rounded to some extent. Didn't dive into the psychological at all. And when they don't do that, they can kind of focus on health, or not health, but diet. A lot of times, if the psychological comes up, they ditch the diet. Here, they didn't really talk too much about that outside of nourishing diet. Kind of broad stroked it there. In any event, hey, I'm probably getting ahead of myself as I tend to do. Let's dive into the notes. You're sensitive enough to take care of yourself, but you're ready to sacrifice yourself for the cause. All right, we knew that one already. Quite the interesting dynamic, though, I would say. And it's admirable in its way also. The reading recommends developing healthy habits early in life, ostensibly so you're prepared for when you wear yourself down, all right? Or out, who's to say. Strenuous exercise to include competitive one-on-one sports, like they said, highly recommended here for some reason. Potentially to exercise your commitment energies, that's right, or excise them perhaps. They also said skin disorders and allergies are discussed to be aware of, which is a through line to some extent for the Capricorn period. How that's dictated by the stars, I don't know. But to that end, veins and bones are also a Capricorn body area, and those get brought up quite a bit also. So, all things being said, try to be mindful of taking care of those too, though I know they didn't mention as much. Having said that, that's been your health, so let's move on to some advice. All right, some advice. You don't always have to win, all right? Being invulnerable doesn't make you well liked. And don't expect everyone to be as committed as you are. Recognize and respect differences. All right. Real quick with the advice, generally is, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of value. All right, what I have to say here. You have to bear with me a little bit. I had to write it in a book, make it real tiny here. You don't always have to win, all right? You may have to be prepared to lose. That's right. That's where I let my mind goes. The likes of which wasn't considered in the breakdown for you, at least as far as I can recall. So I'm curious how that may present and affect you. Yeah, I think that'd be kind of interesting. Being vulnerable doesn't make you well liked, they said. It may not only spark some jealousy, but come off as standoffish. All right, and some may also find it phony, depending upon how it presents to them. Especially if it's a holier than thou kind of, or holier than thou perhaps, kind of affect. But maybe you don't care about being liked, or more specifically, by the people who take offense to that specifically. And why cater to their hang-ups, right? All told, it's good to be aware of that in any regard, I would say. And it's just, I don't know, a good practice to speak of, being cordial with folks, all right? That being said, what else do we have here? Don't expect others to be as committed as you are. I think this is a pretty important facet here. Potential source of frustration for you, I would assume, to be sure, as well as the other people involved. And it's also a common through line in this period, especially for workaholics and people who really are dedicated to how things being done their way or the highway kind of thing. What else do we have here? Recognize and respect differences, and I'd agree with this to some extent. Though respect is earned, is it not? That's what I would argue, all right? And if people are committing to the best of their otherwise wanting capability, okay, fine, all right? But if they aren't committing to the best of their ability, and they're capable of doing more, you know what? I'm not necessarily going to respect that given difference about them, all right? There's something wanting with them as an individual, I would say. So I'd say context is important to that last piece of advice. But in any event, that was the last piece of advice, so let's move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday, you get a meditation. All right, here we go. To desire without any wish for attachment is a high aim. All right. Don't know what to make of that one for you. But once again, here we go. To desire without any wish for attachment is a high aim. All right. Your birthday, your meditation, even if I had an interpretation or a spin for how it might dovetail into the breakdown and all the things it says about you, I wouldn't relay it anyway, even though I don't have one. That's right. Your birthday, just for you. That being said, your meditation in the can, as it were, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Yeah, that's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where we've got the bulk and maybe where we're a little otherwise atrophied. All right, your strengths, here we go. You're trustworthy, you're service-oriented, and you're devoted. All right, I picked up on those for sure. But your weaknesses, let's hold up that objective mirror, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. That's right, it shows off your otherwise superficial insecurities there. Your weaknesses. You're stubborn, you're secretive, and you're maddening. Okay, I would say we got the stubborn part. The other maddening, maybe also. People get a little frustrated when you come across the floor there, the work floor, or whatever you call it, in the factory setting. But you know what? I would say that if weaknesses are something you want to overcome, your strengths are going to help you get there. Service-oriented, devoted, trustworthy. Just turn that inside. All right. Work on yourself, okay? You're always giving it to the job. Focus on yourself a little bit. Bring those things up to the front seat. That also being said, stubborn, secretive, and maddening, I would say in some circumstances, those are strengths, all right? It just depends on what's going on. But if you want to get rid of them, like I said, or bring them back a hair, I think you'd be able to do as much. Having said that, I also like to argue that, you know what, we shouldn't get rid of them altogether because they make us who we are. That's right. And that's your strengths and your weaknesses. So let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is approach it with an eye on figuring out our passions. That's right. All too often I get out in the world and meet folks, asking what they do, and more importantly, if they enjoy it, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't. You can just see it on their face. And I think it's perfectly understandable because too often in life, you get out of school, you got to get right into a job to make ends meet. And maybe you get trapped in that, just climbing the corporate ladder. And it kind of sounds like that might apply to you specifically if the breakdown applies. And at the very root of it, I would say the fatal flaw is it wasn't something you necessarily had any aspirations to do, or it didn't even speak to what you maybe like. But I would say at the same time, you get off work, get on with your weekends, you don't really have the time to put in the effort to figure out your passions. You got to get the bed sheets changed, go buy groceries, just decompress a little bit. There's no time, right? So I think this is the perfect opportunity to look at who not only shares your company, but see what they did to get in the book and maybe take some kind of inspiration from what they did, all right? And I know it's a big-ass tall order, but hey, maybe me putting the bug in your ear about it is going to help you stir up the fires if you like. And if you already got your passions figured out, well, hey, then it's just interesting to see what lottery you drew. So let's dive into it. Those born on this day. We have Marcus Tullius Cicero, a Roman orator and a writer. We also have J.R.R. Tolkien, a British linguist, scholar, and writer of The Lord of the Rings. Sir Richard Arkwright, a British cotton spinning machine inventor and an industrialist. We also have Mel Gibson, the Australian film actor. Sergio Leone, the Italian film director, famous for spaghetti westerns, specifically The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West. That was a good one. I liked that one. John Sturges, a film director of The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape, also a producer. Pola Negri, a Polish silent film actress. George Martin, the British arranger and pianist for the Beatles, also a producer and an A&R record executive. We also have Bobby Hull, a hockey left wing and 3-time NHL scoring leader, 2-time MVP, and 10-time All-NHL. We have Zazu Pitts, a comic actress, Ray Milland, a film actor, Stephen Stills, a singer-songwriter and guitarist from Crosby, Stills, and Nash fame, also Buffalo Springfield. We have Cheryl Miller, a basketball player and 3-time College Player of the Year, and led the U.S. team to Olympic gold. We also have Victor Borge, a Danish comic pianist, Dorothy Arzner, a film director of Dance Girl Dance. We also have Herbie Nichols, a jazz pianist and a composer. Joseph Damien, a Belgian Catholic missionary. We also have what do we have here? Joseph Damien, Belgian Catholic missionary of the Molokai leper colony and died of leprosy, it says. We also have Barbara Nanning, a Dutch ceramic sculptor, Dabney Coleman, a TV actor, and Victoria Principal, a TV film actress. All right. Like I said, I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from other folks born on the same day. A lot of us probably aren't going to want to go out and cure lepers and contract the disease ourselves. Ostensibly, it's difficult to catch that these days considering the antibiotics they have available, but who's to say? It's still not an attractive look or thing you want to go after specifically, right? We also had, what do you call them, musicians, actors. Boy, they just had a lot of them. Also some athletes, directors, writers, whole gamut of creative individuals, it sounds like. And to that end, it sounds like a lot of them went their own way. That's right. So maybe take note. Do you find yourself overly loyal to the system? You know what? I would argue it's time to carve out some time for yourself, all right? Even if it's just a little bit. That's right. Once again, hey, like I said, I know it's a big-ass tall order, but you know what? If I can wish for anything for you on your birthday, it's that you're well on your way to figuring out your passions. Because I think it's important we're jumping out of bed with a purpose, eager to get on with our day, find something fulfilling to get out of it. That's what makes life tolerable, right? That's right. We should be enjoying ourselves with the time we have here. That being said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read, except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Capricorn, the Capricorn II period, the first day of it, and your quality and element is Cardinal Earth. Now, I didn't see any kind of correlation with the geese and the brass ring and the upturned crescent moon, but here nor there. It wasn't altogether all too important, was it? Made for an interesting synchronicity story. But this has been January 3rd, the day of total involvement. From The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. Save the hassle of typing it in a browser if you're interested in picking up a copy. It makes an excellent coffee table book if you're going to have some parties, company over, help you get the ice broken. It's going to get the conversation started for sure, for better or for worse. And those are great parties, especially you. You like to get into conflict that sounded like a little bit of like to it, and you always come out on top. That's right. Or at least instigate the situation. That's right. And watch from afar. I don't know that was in there so much, but try it out. Who's to say? Any event, book having been related, it's not altogether all too important in the scheme of things. And like I said at the top, the scheme of things, it's somebody's birthday. So once again, wishing you a happy birthday. That's right. And for everybody else who joined us randomly or more ideally to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. And hey, we see you back here for your birthday read. But lest I forget, you're 6 and you're 6. I can't come out there to bust you out of jail, but hey, maybe you can find some synchronicity behind the bars. That's right. Get out there, let the universe, the powers that be, stack up some coincidences for you, some synchronicity if you like, and get a little taste of the magic that it has in store for you there. Or they, perhaps. I don't know. I think if you do, you understand why I brought it up. And you should have a little bit of fun on your birthday, I'd argue. But in any event, hey, once again, happy birthday, and take care of yourselves.